Hi, everyone. You're trying to cut through the noise, get a real handle on something important, right? That's what we do here. Today, we're diving deep into cybersecurity, the foundational stuff.
Yeah, and we've got a specific angle for you. We're looking at this through the lens of, well, think of them as essential questions and answers, kind of like study material for the CompTIA Security Plus exam, actually.
Exactly. So we've pulled together a whole load of these core Q&As. They cover, everything from attack types to defenses, the real basics.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission today, to unpack the key insights from all this, give you a solid grasp of the essential principles, how our digital world uh, tries to stay secure.
Or sometimes fails to. It covers a lot the threats, the defenses, the core ideas.
Okay, so let's jump right into those core ideas. Foundational principles. You mentioned something called the CIA triad.
That's it, the CIA triad. It's absolutely central.
Right, not that CIA, I assume. What did it stand for here?
Good point. No, here it stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Okay, break those down for us. Confidentiality first.
Sure. Confidentiality is basically about keeping secrets secret, preventing unauthorized disclosure of information. Think encryption, scrambling data so only the right people can read it.
Right, locking it down. Makes sense. What about integrity?
Integrity means ensuring data is accurate and trustworthy, that it hasn't been altered or messed with inappropriately. Digital signatures are a good example here. They help verify that a file is authentic and unchanged.
Got it. So you know what you're looking at is the real deal, and it hasn't been tampered with. Okay, and availability.
Availability just means that the systems and data are accessible to authorized users when they need them. The services are up and running. This involves things like redundancy, backups, disaster recovery plans, keeping things online.
Confidentiality, integrity, availability. Keep it secret, keep it accurate, keep it accessible. Got it. That's the bedrock.
Pretty much.
Okay, let's shift gears. Who are we defending against? We hear social engineering all the time. What's that really about?
At its core, social engineering targets people, not technology. It's about manipulation, tricking someone into doing something they shouldn't, or giving up information. Phishing is probably the most common example.
Ah, phishing. Yeah, those emails trying to get your password or bank details. How do they work?
Exactly. They send messages, emails, texts, whatever, pretending to be from a legitimate source, a bank, a service you use, maybe even your boss. They create urgency or play on trust to fool you into clicking a bad link or revealing sensitive info.
Right, playing on human nature. And what about spear phishing? Sounds more targeted.
It is much more targeted. Instead of a generic blast, the attacker researches the target an individual, maybe a specific department. They use personal details to make the message seem incredibly convincing. Referencing colleagues, projects, makes it much harder to spot.
Okay, yeah, that sounds way more dangerous because it feels personal. Scary stuff. Let's talk about malware now, the nasty software itself. So many types. Trojans. What's their deal?
A Trojan horse, or just Trojan, disguises itself as something harmless or even useful. You download what you think is a game or a utility, but hidden inside is malicious code. Once you run it, the malware gets installed and does its damage.
Like the old Greek story. Sneaky. And botnets. They sound like massive threats.
They are. A botnet is basically a network of infected computers or devices, could be PCs, phones, routers, even smart fridges, all compromised by malware and controlled remotely by an attacker, the bot herder.
Wow, okay.
And they can use this army of bots to launch huge attacks like DDoS attacks or send spam, steal data, all coordinated.
Right, the scale's the problem. What about logic bombs? They sound quite dramatic.
Yeah, the name fits. A logic bomb is code hidden within software that's set to go off only when certain conditions are met. It could be a specific date, or maybe when an employee's name is removed from the payroll system, things like that. Until the trigger condition happens, it just sits there dormant.
Huh. Waiting to explode, basically. Okay, so those are some malware types. What about direct network attacks? DDoS comes up a lot.
Right, DDoS distributed denial of service. The goal is to overwhelm a target, like a website or server, with just a flood of junk traffic, usually comes from a botnet.
Ah, using the botnet army.
Exactly. So much traffic hits the target that legitimate users can't get through. It's like causing a massive traffic jam on the digital highway.
Makes sense why sites just suddenly go down sometimes. Okay, evil twin attacks. What's that about? Sounds mischievous.
It is pretty sneaky. An evil twin is a fake Wi-Fi hotspot set up by an attacker. It mimics a legitimate network like the free Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or airport.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, you connect thinking it's safe, but the attacker's now sitting in the middle, intercepting all your traffic. They can steal passwords, inject malware, you name it.
Yikes. So always be careful with public Wi-Fi. What about man-in-the-middle attacks? Similar idea.
Similar in that the attacker gets between you and something else. In a man-in-the-middle attack, they secretly intercept communications between two parties. They might just listen in, or they could actually alter the messages being sent back and forth. Neither side realizes there's someone eavesdropping and potentially tampering.
Okay, like a digital wiretap that can also change what's being said. Now, we hear about vulnerabilities all the time. What defines a vulnerability?
Simply put, a vulnerability is just a weakness, a flaw in software, hardware, configuration, even a process that an attacker could potentially exploit to do something bad, gain access, disrupt service, whatever. It's like leaving a window unlocked.
Okay. And that leads to zero-day attacks. Why are they considered so bad?
Because they exploit a vulnerability that nobody knew about before the attack happened. Or at least the vendor, the people who made the software, didn't know. So there's no patch, no fix available when the attack starts. The defenders have literally 0 days to prepare.
That's a tough spot to be in, right? Against time. Okay, so we've covered some ways attackers get in. Brute force attacks, what are those?
Brute force is just what it sounds like, trying everything, usually for passwords. An attacker uses automated tools to try millions, maybe billions, of password combinations against an account until they guess the right one.
Just hammering away until the lock breaks. Depends on password strength, I guess.
Absolutely. Strong, unique passwords make brute force much harder, often infeasible.
And backdoors. That sounds intentional.
It can be. A backdoor is a hidden way into a system that bypasses normal security checks. Sometimes developers build them in for testing, which is risky if forgotten. Other times, attackers create them after gaining initial access so they can easily get back in later.
Like a secret passage. And once an attacker is inside one system, what's lateral movement?
Right, they rarely stop at the first machine they compromise. Lateral movement is when they use that initial foothold to move sideways, essentially, exploring the network. They try to access other systems, escalate their privileges, find sensitive data, reach more critical targets.
So getting in is just the first step. Then they map out the place and look for the valuables. Okay, quite the rogues gallery of threats. Let's switch to defense. Firewalls, everyone knows the name, but what do they actually do?
A firewall is basically a gatekeeper for network traffic. It sits between networks, typically your internal network and the big, scary internet, and inspects traffic going in and out. Based on rules you set, it decides what to allow and what to block.
Okay, a traffic cop for your network. How does an intrusion detection system, an IDS, fit in?
An IDS is more like a burglar alarm. While the firewall tries to prevent bad stuff from getting in, the IDS watches the traffic and system activity, looking for suspicious patterns or known attack signatures. If it sees something dodgy, it raises an alert.
So firewall blocks, IDS alerts. Got it. Now, encryption, we mentioned it for confidentiality. Can you elaborate a bit?
Sure, encryption's core job is to scramble data, turn readable plaintext into unreadable ciphertext. The only way to unscramble it is with the right key. Protects data if it's stolen or intercepted.
Okay. And there are different kinds, symmetric and asymmetric.
That's right, symmetric encryption uses the same secret key for both encrypting and decrypting. It's generally faster. But you have the problem of securely sharing that single key.
Right.
Asymmetric encryption uses two keys, a public key and a private key. They're mathematically linked. You can share the public key freely. Anyone can use it to encrypt messages for you, but only you, with your secret private key, can decrypt those messages.
Ah, like a mailbox. Anyone can drop a letter in the public slot, but only the key holder can open it.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. It also works for things like digital signatures, verifying identity.
Makes sense. And encryption at rest. What does that mean?
Simply that the data is encrypted while it's being stored on a hard drive, a USB stick, a server, whatever. So if someone steals the physical device, the data itself is still protected, still scrambled, unless they also have the key.
Right. Securing the data even when it's just sitting there. Okay, moving on to access control. Authentication proving who you are. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, is huge now.
It really is, and for good reason. MFA means you need more than one way to prove it's you. It's not just something you know, like a password. It's also something you have, like your phone getting a code or a security key, or something you are, like a fingerprint or face scan.
So passwords alone just aren't enough anymore.
Generally, no. MFA makes it much, much harder for attackers, even if they steal your password.
And biometrics, fingerprints, face scans that fits into the something you are category, right?
Exactly, using unique physical characteristics for authentication.
Okay, so once you're authenticated, you're in. Well, what can you do? That's authorization, right? And the principle of least privilege.
Precisely. Authorization determines your permissions, what files you can access, what actions you can perform. The principle of least privilege is crucial here. It means you should only give users the absolute minimum permissions they need to do their job and nothing more.
Don't give everyone the keys to the whole kingdom.
Exactly. It limits the damage if an account gets compromised. The attacker only gets the limited access that user had.
Smart. Okay, back to data integrity for a second.
hmm
Digital signatures and hashing, how do they help?
Digital signatures use that asymmetric encryption idea we talked about. They verify the sender's identity and ensure the message or file hasn't been tampered with since it was signed. Hashing is a bit different. It creates a unique fingerprint, a hash value for a piece of data. If even one bit of the data changes, the hash value changes completely. So it's great for checking if a file has been altered.
Okay, so signatures are for authenticity and integrity. Hashing is mainly for detecting changes for integrity. Cool. Secure communications, VPNs, and TLS. What roles do they play?
A VPN, a virtual private network, creates a secure, encrypted tunnel over a public network, like the internet. It hides your traffic from eavesdroppers between your device and the VPN server. Good for privacy and security, especially on public Wi-Fi.
Right.
TLS, Transport Layer Security, is the main protocol used to secure communications directly between, say, your web browser and a website. It's the S's in HTTPS. It encrypts the data flowing back and forth.
So VPN secures the pipe, TLS secures the conversation happening through the pipe or other connections. Got it. And certificate authorities, CAs, where do they fit in?
CAs are trusted organizations that issue digital certificates. These certificates are used especially with TLS HTTPS to verify that a website or server or person is actually who they claim to be. Your browser checks the certificate, sees it's issued by a trusted CA, and knows it's likely talking to the real site, not an imposter.
They're like the digital passport office vouching for identities online.
That's a good way to think of it, yeah.
Okay, proactive security, vulnerability scans and patch management sounds like basic maintenance.
It is, but it's critical maintenance. Vulnerability scanning uses tools to automatically check your systems for known weaknesses. Patch management is the whole process of testing and applying the updates, the patches that vendors release to fix those weaknesses.
Finding the holes and plugging them before attackers do.
Exactly. You have to stay on top of it.
What about sandboxing and whitelisting? How do they help?
Sandboxing lets you run potentially risky code or applications in an isolated, contained environment. If the code turns out to be malicious, it can't harm the rest of your system because it's trapped in the
It's
sandbox.
like a digital quarantine zone.
Kind of, yeah. Whitelisting is different. It's a default deny approach. You create a list of only the applications or websites that are explicitly allowed. Anything not on the list is blocked. Very restrictive, but can be very secure.
Ah, okay. Sandbox contains the unknown. Whitelist only allows the known good. What about watching everything that's happening? Seam systems.
SIEM security information and event management. These are complex systems that collect log data from all over your network, firewalls, servers, applications, everything. They correlate all this information, analyze it, and look for signs of trouble, potential attacks, policy violations, help security teams get a unified view and detect threats faster.
Like a central nervous system for security events.
That's a decent analogy, yeah. It tries to make sense of all the noise.
Okay. And one more defensive tactic, honeypots. Sounds intriguing.
They are pretty neat. A honeypot is a decoy. It's a system deliberately set up to look attractive to attackers. Maybe it looks like it has valuable data or known vulnerabilities. The idea isn't to block attacks, but to lure them in,
Why would you want to do that?
to study them. You watch how the attacker interacts with the honeypot, what tools they use, what they're after. It gives you valuable intelligence about current threats and tactics without risking your actual production systems.
Clever. Setting a trap to learn about the hunters. Okay, let's give to the more formal side frameworks and practices. Security policies, security baselines.
Yeah, these are essential organizational documents. A security policy is the high-level statement of intent. It sets out the rules, the responsibilities, the organization's overall approach to security.
The what's and why.
Exactly. The security baseline then defines the minimum standards, specific configurations, settings, controls that must be applied to all systems to meet the policy requirements. It's the how, the mandatory minimum.
Policy sets the goal, baseline sets the starting line. Okay? And ISO 27001.
That's a big one. ISO 27001 is an international standard for an information security management system, or ISMS. It provides a whole framework, a methodology for managing an organization's security risks systematically. Getting certified shows a serious commitment to security best practices.
A global benchmark. Okay, now risk. We can't eliminate all risk. What's risk mitigation?
Risk mitigation means taking steps to reduce either the likelihood of a threat happening or the impact if it does happen. Implementing controls is mitigation. Buying cyber insurance is transferring risk, another strategy. Sometimes you accept risk, sometimes you avoid it. Mitigation is about actively reducing it.
Taking practical steps to lessen the threat or the potential damage. Makes sense. And when things do go wrong, incident response. What's the absolute first step?
Preparation, by far the most important step. You need a plan before the incident. Who does what? How do you communicate? What tools do you need? Training people. If you're figuring it out during a crisis, you're already behind.
Got it. Preparation prevents panic and poor performance. What about major disasters? Disaster recovery planning?
Right. Disaster recovery, or DR, is focused on getting IT systems back online after a major disruption, fire, flood, massive cyber attack, you name it. How do you restore critical operations and data? That's what the DR plan details.
Keeping the business running, essentially. And the difference between hot and cold sites for DR.
It's about readiness. A hot site is a fully equipped duplicate facility. It has the hardware, software, and near real-time data. You can switch over to it almost immediately. Very low downtime, but expensive.
Okay.
A cold site is basically just space and utilities. We have to bring in equipment, install software, restore data from backups. It takes much longer to get operational. Cheaper, but much slower recovery.
Hot is ready to go. Cold needs significant setup time. Got it. Handling data itself, data classification. Why do that?
You classify data based on its sensitivity and importance. Public, internal, confidential, restricted, whatever categories you choose. This tells everyone how careful they need to be with it and dictates the security controls required for each level. You protect your most sensitive data the most strongly.
Labeling things so you know how to protect them properly. Makes sense. Okay. Understanding the adversary. What exactly is a threat actor and data exfiltration?
A threat actor is anyone or anything that could cause harm. Could be a hacker group, a nation state, an insider, even malware itself sometimes. They have intent and capability. Data exfiltration is the act of stealing data, smuggling it out of the network, often the main goal of an attack.
The bad guy and the act of stealing the goods. What about the kill chain? Sounds like a military term.
It borrows from military concepts, yeah. In cyber, the kill chains models the typical stages an attacker goes through. Things like reconnaissance, scouting the target, weaponization, preparing the malware, delivery, getting it to the target, exploitation, breaking in, installation, setting up persistence, command and control, communicating back. And finally, actions and objectives, actually doing the damage or stealing the data.
Understanding their playbook.
Right. If you understand the steps, you can try to break the chain at different points. Detect reconnaissance, block delivery, stop command and control signals.
Okay, that's helpful. Now, we've mostly talked about external attackers. What's an insider threat?
That's a threat that comes from inside the organization. A disgruntled employee, someone bribed, or even just someone careless or untrained who makes a mistake. They already have some level of legitimate access, which makes them potentially very dangerous and often harder to detect.
Tricky. Okay, nearly there. Bring your own device, BYO. And physical security. How do they fit in?
BYO letting employees use their personal phones, laptops for work. It's convenient, sure, but a security headache. How do you secure company data on a device the company doesn't own or fully control? It mixes personal and work stuff, introduces risks.
Yeah, I could see that.
And physical security, well, it's fundamental. Locks on doors, server room access controls, security guards protecting hardware from theft or damage. If someone can just walk in and grab your server, your fancy firewall doesn't matter much. It's the base layer.
Right? Can't forget the actual physical world. Wow. Okay, that was a lot. We've covered a huge amount of ground.
We really have. It just shows, doesn't it? Cybersecurity is so layered, so complex. From those core ideas like CIA through all the ways things can go wrong and all the different technologies and practices we use to try and defend ourselves.
Absolutely. And hopefully this deep dive gives you, our listeners, a much clearer picture, a really solid starting point for understanding this digital landscape we all live in.
It really does. And, thinking about how interconnected everything is now, it makes you wonder, what single security principle out of all we discussed do you think has the biggest impact today?
Interesting question.
Is it encryption protecting data everywhere? Is it MFA making stolen passwords less useful? Maybe it's something simpler like basic security awareness patching, strong passwords, spotting phishing.
Yeah, something for everyone to think about. How do these ideas play out in your own digital life? Where could you maybe tighten things up? Definitely some food for thought.